YouTube's biggest scammer is back with more lies and deception. And at this point, bro, you kind of have to blame the people who are platforming him. Obviously, I'm talking about Jay Morrison because the title of biggest scammer would be fitting for no other than Jay Morrison. Jay Morrison really ran amok on YouTube, bro. Like, yo, he ran amok on social media in general. We don't applaud scammers on this channel, but you kind of got to applaud Jay Morrison to come from where he come from and to be able to finesse multiple millions, 10 plus millions of dollars. It's like that's something that like that's unfathomable. But before Jay Morrison could hit his big lick, Jay Morrison hit a couple of other like smaller licks that's still pretty impressive. Like, for example, here's one of Jay Morrison's legendary scam. Jay Morrison was able to get in connection with an NFL player. At the time, the NFL player, Muhammad Wilkerson, was the highest paid defensive end in the NFL. Jay Morrison somehow managed to befriend this dude and got him to invest in Jay Morrison's uniform company. He gave Jay Morrison about $250,000, man. All right, Jay Morrison ran off with the $250,000, and that was the story at the time. There was another brother who came out, and he spoke on how Jay Morrison was able to rope him in to being a mentee. This is a dude from the streets, was selling drugs, was trying to legitimize his money. So he gave Jay Morrison $50,000 for a real estate deal. Jay Morrison told him, hey, I'm going to buy houses. You are also going to come in as an equal partner on the deals I do. Your name is going to be on the paperwork. Man, Jay Morrison took that man's money. He started to inquire about the houses and the projects. Jay Morrison kind of gave him the runaround when he started to see paperwork for the quote unquote house, that Jay Morrison was purchasing with the money. His name was nowhere on the paperwork. He starts to get suspicious. He asks for his money back. Jay Morrison goes to him. So there's countless of stories like this, bro. That's $300,000 from just two people, all right? And there's countless of stories. But Jay Morrison's biggest lick was probably this Tulsa real estate fund, where Jay Morrison raised more than $10 million.
In 2018, the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, it's regulated by the government, the SEC, allowing qualified people to crowdfund with others with the goal of investing and owning real estate. 15,000 people joined the movement, but 6 years later, that $11.7 million that they've raised has nearly dried up, and many of the investors are pointing their finger at one person.
And as a fellow real estate developer, I took a liking to what he was talking about.
And Julian Gordon says it seemed that Jay Morrison had it all figured. He called it the Tulsa Real Estate Fund in honor of what was known as the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in the early 1900s. The Tulsa Real Estate Fund was a unique concept and turned out to be the largest Black-owned real estate crowd fund. Everybody had to put in at least $500. Gordon, a real estate investor himself, he put in $40,000, the most of anyone.
I was a friend at this time, and I sat in the Legacy Center in his corner office, and I told him straight up that your name has a lot of mud in the streets, but you have 15,000 people who are your biggest fans and believe in you, who he has since then alienated and really cut us off in many ways.
But Gordon says that he still noticed that the math wasn't mathing, that $11.7 million initially raised was being swallowed up, losing millions year over year, according to these SEC filings, with no recorded profits. And at the same time, the fund manager, Jay Morrison, was allegedly paying himself in management fees.
He's eaten over $1 million, almost probably $2 million by now in management fees. He's paid his wife through the organization. She used the facilities without probably any payment. She hosted her podcast there. She hosted her greenlit ATL events there. And I guarantee that there's no transactions of her paying us, the investors or the entity, for the usage of that space.
Eventually, it came crashing down. They had to sell the building. Everybody lost money but Jay Morrison, right? Like, Jay Morrison is the only person who made out with millions of dollars in this situation. Now, Jay Morrison was forced into isolation. Everybody on the internet kind of, treated him like a pariah. Now, there are certain details about this particular fund that I'm not really too keen in diving into details about. For example, people were calling out certain purchases Jay Morrison made for himself with the funds. There were certain employees coming out at the time claiming that Jay Morrison was paying them with the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, even though the Tulsa Real Estate Fund is separate from Jay Morrison's other businesses. So, for example, if it's a fund that investors are receiving money from, but you are siphoning money from this and putting it into this business, however, the investors aren't getting paid from this business, then that's essentially fraud, right? So Jay Morrison was doing a bunch of this, misappropriated all the money, and now everybody lost money, okay? But him. 11+ million down the drain. So Jay Morrison decided he was going to come out of isolation today and do an interview, right, with a guy from Social Proof. And this entire interview was just Jay Morrison making excuses and blaming everybody else but himself.
So we want to be the rich uncle for the community that you could call, like, hey, I got a good idea. Yeah. Let's invest, right?
But yet you're the only person who got rich off the fund.
And so it was a $50 million, the business plan was based on a $50 million raise. And we were on, in my opinion, we were on track for that. I mean, raising several million your first week. Okay, we rolling. Yeah. And then that first week though, and I was planning for opposition. I thought it would be like white nationalists or like the other side or something like that. People are opposed to black people unifying around economics. Yeah. And I wasn't prepared for the onslaught of bloggers and podcasts and just naysayers and anti-TREF movement that started like a week after we launched.
This man got some nerves, yo. He's about to complain that black folks only gave him $11 million and not the full 50. So that's why the fund failed, sir.
And that kicked up so much that our month 6, which was January 2019, month 6, the SEC literally knocked on our door in Sandy Springs. Mm-hmm. And then the FBI knocked on our door in Sandy Springs. The SEC came to our office in Lenox Road in Buckhead. And so a dual investigation started because of all the, it's a Ponzi scheme, this is a fraud, this is this noise.
This is before slander though.
The slander started week 1, bro.
Dang.
Yeah. Tone Talks, Yvette Carnell, who ended up being the person that started the False Prophets page. It was like a whole group of them who were just like, and most of them were like the ADOS community, who were like about reparations. Mm-hmm. And they just had some kind of like beef with me.
This man came out of isolation after 4 years for this. This man has learned zero, nothing at all. Presenting them having a problem with you scamming black folks as they had a problem with me for no reason. I don't know why. They were picking on. No, they weren't picking on you. They were calling out the fund for being a scam. They were calling out the fund for being misproperly ran. They were saying this fund was going to make nobody money but Jay Morrison. And they were ultimately correct in their assessment. So history tells us they weren't just bullying you or picking on you. They were being whistleblowers to a really, 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 really big problem, that came to be true. Now, Jay Morrison will tell you, no, they made the problem, come to fruition, right? We didn't have a problem before them.
And then the guy who does one of the Watch Your Money podcast, before he had that podcast, he was offended by, I think I provoked him on the Shade Room. I had posted a video on the Shade Room of me teaching like some tax strategies to Kerry Hilson and B. Simone, some of our friends. And he was in the comments on Shade Room before he ever had a brand. And like, hey, I'm an accountant, you shouldn't be saying that. And I said something probably slick back, just kind of my arrogance and kind of whatever. And after that, he was just locked in. And so he had some influence with the NFLPA. I think one was his frat brother or a college mate. So he had the NFLPA send out a warning letter to the whole entire NFLPA of all current and retired players, saying warning about our fund. This is in the first month. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting to the biggest mistake.
For sure.
So we got a national credible organization like the NFLPA warning all, mind you, we have like several NFL players in our fund. Rest in peace to Marius Thomas, my brother, like literally like one of my brothers.
I'm sure you scamming Mo Wilkerson out of $250,000 had zero factor in the NFL warning their NFL players not to invest in a Tulsa real estate fund.
NFL Hall of Famer, he was in our fund, and others. And that was a tarnish. And then all the online noise. And then the SEC and the FBI started investigating us in month 6 of our company starting. So imagine you starting a new company, you're excited about it, you pumped up. To your point, you tell your staff and your team, everybody put in $2,000, we're gonna go do this, build this studio out. Yeah. And imagine the 6th month of you doing so, the FBI come investigate you and your company and whatever other governing agency come investigate your company. So not just the legal cost, which is about $500,000 to defend that, an 18-month investigation, and what it did to my team, because they got all my team laptops, iPads, phones, they're screening everybody's stuff with these devices. Yeah. And so my team has to go home, my staff has to go home to their families and explain why they're under investigation. So to the point of what the biggest mistake was, when that happened, and we were raising about $1 million a month at that time. It dwindled down to $100,000 a month. It was too strong of a current to continue to raise capital upstream against slander,
Take notice of how he continues to point out that what people were saying at the time was defamation, but everything they said came true. People were saying this fund was a scam and it wouldn't make anybody money but Jay Morrison, and that came true, right? The fund didn't make any investors money. Investors lost all their money. So what exactly was the defamation? He will say, yo, they pushed that narrative, right? They're the reason why the fund ain't make no money, because they pushed the narrative that it was a scam and scared everybody away. Jay Morrison is about to try to get us to feel sorry for him, right? Because he went from raising a couple $1 million in the first couple weeks to only doing $100,000 a month and ultimately raising $11+ million. Can you imagine somebody who got a free $100K every month, a free $100,000 every month, trying to make us, fam, you had enough money to do what it do. You were bad at your job. You were poor at it. And some might even say you were damn near unethical and scammy with it, right? Because paying employees with the Tulsa fund from your business, allegedly, like, it's crazy. You buying certain properties in your name when it's the Tulsa is crazy. You paying yourself up for almost $2 million out of $11 million fund is crazy.
We're a company that's based on equity, having capital to loan out capital or to give capital infusions or partnerships. Yeah. When you can't raise capital as a company where your business model is based on deploying capital, it's a struggling business model at that point. And so my biggest mistake was not recognizing that sooner, understanding how severe those investigations were and just that whole climate was. And if I was coaching somebody now who was starting a fund and their fund got under investigation in 6 months, and it was an online army opposing their efforts to raise capital from online, I'd be like, shut it down. Like, tell your investors, hey, like, the climate's too rough. We need to wait till this investigation settle, find out what's going on, and then we'll maybe reconvene. But my biggest mistake at that is, other mistakes I'll lay them all out. Yeah, for sure. But that was one of the biggest ones early, was like, I tried to bully my way through it. Like, I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, I hear y'all hating, it's cool, watch, I'm gonna show you. And mind you, I was worried about the investigations, not because I did anything wrong, but I'm a black man with a fund called Tulsa Real Estate Fund. It's named Tulsa as a code word, Black Wall Street. Yeah. I don't live in Tulsa. I've been to Tulsa 3 times. Yeah. I wasn't called the Black Wall Street Fund, but I figured it wouldn't get approved by the SEC. Sure. So I did code word Tulsa. So I'm like, oh man, they about to Garvey me. Like,
the recurring pattern among these dudes, they all got like the savior complex. They all regard themselves in a higher light than they really are. Dude is putting himself in the same light as Marcus Garvey. No, the FBI or whoever probably started investigating you because, there were too many narratives around you being a scam. They weren't targeting you because they felt like you were like the new Black Messiah. That's crazy. But a lot of these dudes have a savior complex, right? They believe that they have this higher sense of life. They're sent here to save people. But ultimately, they all end up being crooks, okay? Now, this dude would even go on to say that he was trying to save black folks, but black folks just ain't want to be saved.
It's natural, right? But
I mean, I empathize with it. It's like, but when you met me, you knew, like, my moniker was Young Malcolm. Yeah. Like, I went around the country teaching for free in inner city projects. Like, I've been one of my two best-selling books is called The Solution: How Africans in America Achieve Unity, Justice, and Repair. I've been a revolutionary. What has happened? What has been the protocol for all our revolutionaries? So it's like
hate, disdain,
right? Dismantling, discrediting. Like, you literally look at the definition of COINTELPRO. It literally says to discredit, dismantle, disrupt, right? All these different things. And so I just knew what I was walking into. Like, I always said, like, this is literally an epiphany I had. I did like a kind of a main documentary years ago. And I remember being at the United Nations in 2013. I met with the United Nations Humanitarian Division. Okay. And this guy like Dirk Seeger, he was like somebody from like Germany, he was at the UN in New York. And we were talking about humanitarian efforts. And I told him, I said, if God made me a deal to give up my life so that my people could be repaired, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I give up all my future, all my potential, my whole entire life for black people to have the repair. Yeah. And when all this reputational stuff happened, God spoke to me and was like, don't start complaining to me about your reputation being assassinated. You said you were willing to give up your whole life for my people. So if you're not willing to give up your reputation and put that on the altar, you definitely wasn't willing to give up your life.
God said no such thing. God told me to tell the people he said no such thing and stop lying on his name, man. These dudes are obsessed with being like revolutionaries and the Black Messiah, not because they want to save people, but being a Black Messiah puts you in control of culture. And once you're in control of culture, you can enrich your pockets to infinite degrees. Jay-Z has been doing it for years. Jay-Z has presented himself as the voice for Black people. So hence, whenever these billionaires and gazillionaires want to do business with somebody who can control culture, right, who can run a psyop for them, you know who they call? They call Jay-Z. Right, when the NFL had a Black people problem, right, when we were boycotting, you know who they called? They called Jay-Z to make us quiet. Once you present yourself as the leader of Black folks, you now is like in a position to monetize and enrich like no other. That was his goal, right? These dudes also did this weird thing, right? They did this performative live stream, which was like weird, right? They did this performative like live stream where Jay Morrison took questions live, but it was literally like, it was Jay Morrison taking questions from literal fans. So you put a man like Jay Morrison, who knows all about this kind of stuff, who knows every detail about this kind of stuff, you put him on a live stream with fans who probably heard bits and pieces somewhere, and this was supposed to be like some type of open and fair discussion that was supposed to produce like the objective truth. Cut it out, bro. Jay Morrison ran circles around the fans because he know more about this. Put Jay Morrison in front of like pocket watching with JT. Put Jay Morrison in front of what happened to Common Sense. Put Jay Morrison in front of people who can match Jay Morrison's knowledge of how these things work and challenge him. Putting Jay Morrison in front of fans, man, cut it out, bro. But y'all let me know in the comment section what y'all think about this, man. Do y'all believe Jay Morrison when he says he was well-intentioned? Let me know, okay? And, if you're still watching this video and you want to watch another good video, then click on this video here somewhere on my screen, here, or here on my screen to find out why Dr. Umar Johnson is being attacked by Black Twitter today. I'm going to see you guys in this video. And if you enjoy my content, right below this video, there's a hype button. A hype is how you push my video in the algorithm for me. So if you can afford to send me a hype, please send me a hype. You get 3 hypes a week. So please send a hype to this video if you rock with me. I'm going to see you guys in this video, okay? I'm out of here, folks. Peace.